to insecurity, that was another huge fear. And I guess it's connected to fear of being judged, in my opinion, but you tell me. Like, I feel like a lot of people are like insecure because they think they're not going to make it again, or they're afraid of do the wrong choice or not having the results. So it's like, or make a big mistake, like big failure. It's all around failure, which is the first topic we talked about. So how do we deal with insecurity, especially when, I think also when imposter syndrome hits? Like, how do you feel if you do feel like an imposter? I feel it's really hard to get out of there. How do you overcome that? How do you get out of there?
Well, first of all, know that you're not alone. Really, like you can Google anytime actors or singers with stage fright, and you will stumble upon Adele, and you will stumble upon like Beyonce and the big ones who are amazing at what they do. You would never discredit their art, but you can definitely see how they are still struggling with certain aspects and how they still think that they are not good enough, or that they are still not there because for some part it might be something that is in your past, it might be a limitation that you're still clinging to. In some way it could also be that you know how much further you want to go, and that you feel small in comparison to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's true.
I think this is something that a lot of people do. They compare themselves to an ideal, to someone else who is just like 20,000 miles further ahead.
Yeah.
And then they compare themselves, or they compare themselves to an ideal of themselves, but they don't give themselves again the time to achieve this ideal, but they judge themselves with this. So I would say imposter syndrome is very, very often very common, but it should not be something that stops you.
Yes.
In some way, it is a good way, because it is a good thing, because it shows that you are ready to grow. It shows that you are not, I think it would be even more dangerous if people don't have it, and then they were like narcissists who are just like so convinced that they are perfect and so convinced that they can do anything without even caring about whether they are actually doing a good job.
Yes.
So a little bit of insecurity, I think, is going to be fine.
But what if that stops you from doing things? How do you deal with that then?
How do you deal with it? Well, I would say what I like to do with my clients if we stumble upon a level of insecurity or imposter syndrome, and it is because of this reason that they are trying to go so far and feeling so small in comparison to it. What I like to do is something that I call a scaling exercise, which is very good because it kind of grounds you. So I would then urge people to take a piece of paper and write on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being like the farthest away that you can be from your ideal or from your vision or from your goal, like having nothing in relation to it, and 10 being the absolute, complete, perfect, most fulfilling completion of your goal and of who you want to be, because oftentimes this is something that we pair together, who we want to be with the goal that we want to achieve. And then ask yourself honestly, where do I feel that I am now on the scale from 0 to 10? So that even the people who we look up to, they will never probably say that they're at a 10, because once you have reached your goal, you're going to see the next thing and the next thing. You're always growing. Yeah, this is a good thing, but it's not good if it debilitates us, because we feel too small in comparison to it.
Right.
So then I would just ask, where are you now, right now at the scale? And then ask yourself honestly, what did you have to do to get to this stage? Well, you can do scaling exercises for a lot of things, but in this context, I know that we talked about your goal being so big that you felt not enough, that you didn't know whether you could do it, etc. And then I asked you, well, what did you already do in order to get to where you are right now? And then you just started like, okay, well, I did this, and then I did this, and oh, I did this as well. And then all of a sudden you came up with so many things that you actually grew within yourself already, and the skills that you had to acquire. And suddenly we're like, yeah, of course I'm going to be able to do the rest of the steps.
Exactly. And also, like, of course, for my job as well, is like, I can't help anyone yet. I'm not good enough to help anyone else. And actually I realized, and that's what I always say to my students, like, if you're 3 steps up compared to another person, you can teach them.
Yeah.
You don't have to be on the 10th step to actually start teaching, right? And I felt a 0. And then by talking to you, I was like, no, actually I'm a 3. So I can start talking to people that don't have my life experience or my work experience. And they might get something out of it because they don't know all these things yet. And then what allowed me to overcome the imposter syndrome, really, I was so afraid of teaching, but then seeing the results. I always like seeing that people actually were very grateful for the things that I was teaching them. And then I was like, oh, then this is not so obvious then.
Yeah.
So for me, it's easy, but it's not really easy for people that haven't done this kind of job or haven't done this life experience or whatever that is that made me be at the 3rd step.
Yeah, but this is what you were able to do because you acknowledged that you are at step 3. Yeah. And if you had been at step 1, it would have been even more. But what a lot of people do is like they take steps and they go further, and they have gone a long path already without even knowing it. But they always kind of reset themselves to 0.
Yes.
Like they take a few steps and they are like, okay, but now I'm at 0. And then they take a few more steps. Yes, and you did the same. You like belittled everything that you learned along the way, and you were like always looking further ahead. And I think this is something that people are always kind of, not always, but often irritated about, like this vision that has to pull you. And this vision, this is beautiful, but it doesn't mean that you have to dismiss everything that was before, because everything that came before and that led you to where you are right now is actually what brings you closer to your vision as well.
Yes.
By acknowledging on which level you are right now, no matter whether this is a 2, a 3, a 4, whatever, and really like going deep and saying, what does it mean to be at this stage?
Yes.
You just can't belittle anymore what you have already learned.
And what I feel like is no one is a 0. Everyone has life or work experience. Like
no one
is a 0. So if you feel like a 0, that's wrong.
Yeah, if you feel like you're a 0, I would actually say that there is something else behind that. This is not about your skills, that this is not really about your level of competence or of expertise, because I think no one who is watching your content, who is ready to take a next step and who is ready to grow as a person and as a business, no one is going to be a 0.
That's so true.
But it can be difficult to acknowledge it.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, you're not a 0.
No, you're not a 0, but we are so much ingrained with this being humble that we take from ourselves. But these are resources, these are skills that we need to accept and acknowledge. And we are not doing anybody a service by being humble about the experiences that we have already collected.
Actually, if you guys want, please leave a comment where you kind of like write down for yourself, not even for us, but if you want to share like where you think you are, like if you're a 2 or a 3 or a 10, or how do you feel, and I don't know, your life experience, your work experience, where you're at. And to me, I felt as a 3. So I'm going to do the exercise right now.
Yeah.
I felt like, when I started, I felt like not a 0, but a 1.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like no one is going to get something out of what I teach. That's so easy. That's so obvious. And then I started with you, like learning that actually I did have this life experience and I did have this work experience. Even if I had no degree in marketing, I did know marketing things. And I was actually teaching them 2 months later to a marketing team. So that's insane. But But then I felt when I started teaching people that from a 1 I felt a 3 because I saw the reaction and it was like, oh, okay. Then so by actually jumping the fear, like the obstacle, and being like, okay, let's see, let's experiment, let's see if I'm actually a 1 or a 0 or whatever I am.
Yeah.
And so that's when it was like from 1 to 3, okay, I have something to teach. Now I feel like I'm stuck at 3, but not stuck. Like I feel like to take the next level is going to take time because now I reached everything I wanted to reach. And still I have so much I have to learn and I want to do for my students and I want to do for myself and my company. And I do have one right now, which I didn't have 6 months ago, not even 4 months ago. So it's going amazing. So I feel a 3. I started from a 1 and I feel like that's great. And it's already a lot. And I know I can feel a 4 or a 5 or a 6. And even if I keep feeling like a 3, I feel like my point is as long as I don't feel lower than that and I keep steady at 3, I'm okay. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but I would even challenge this because if you were to do something completely courageous now, completely out of your comfort zone, and I know that you know now how to go out of your comfort zone in a safe way.
Yeah.
Because this is also something that we talked about, that rarely anyone knows how to go out of your comfort zone in a strategic way.
Yes.
But if you went out of your comfort zone now and dropped back to a 1 because you entered a completely new field, I'm sure that you would master it. Because as we have done with your singing experience, with your art experience, with your experience in Canada, what people rarely realize is they can translate so many resources and so many of their expertises and skills onto any new experience.
Exactly.
There is rarely anyone who goes into anything that has no connection to anything they have done before. It's just rarely possible even.
And that makes me go to the other fear, which is the fear of realizing that they've made the wrong choice and the fear of regret. And what you just said made me think about Canada and how they see, like, you did the wrong thing. You spent 5 years there, all these sacrifices, and then what? You came back. Actually, if it wasn't for all of that, though, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have my own company. I wouldn't have the expertise I have personally and work-wise. So I really feel like, for me, that fear of realizing they've made the wrong choice, there is really no wrong choice in life. Because whatever choice you make is going to take you somewhere.
Yeah.
Better or good, it's going to teach you something. And Canada, to me, was not a wrong choice at all, actually. And I do not regret it. Even the way it ended, I do not regret it because everything led me to where I am.
Yes.
And
it can be difficult to accept this while you are going through an experience like you did with Canada, or returning and feeling like, okay, people are going to judge me again. But in the end, you are so much smarter 2-3 years in advance, like proceeding. Then you can never. I can still remember the story that I told you, and I don't know anymore where I got it from. But there is this story about a successful entrepreneur being interviewed, and the reporter asked him, well, how did you become so successful? And the entrepreneurs tells him, like, 2 words: right decisions. And the reporter then says, well, okay, so how do you make the right decisions? 1 word: experience. And the reporter then asks, okay, perfect, how do you get this experience? 2 words: wrong choices.
It's
wrong decisions.
True.
And it's so true. You learn with every experience. And I feel like we are so afraid of regretting a step, or we are so afraid to take the next step because we think it always has to be planned in advance and we have to know the whole path in order to take the next step. But again, this is so putting so much pressure on us. And we are only ever going to have to take the next right step, and then check in with ourselves, and then again take the next right step and learn from every experience. Every experience can be so much of new skills and resources and wisdom. Like the best things that you have learned is probably